Okay, folks. Please rise while the colors are posted. And salute. Former Congressman Michael McNulty will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our opening prayer. Brooke Albert will lead us in the prayer. Please be seated. Good morning. I'm Tim Forbes, the chairman of the Rensselaer County Honor a Deceased Veteran Committee. We've gathered here this morning to honor a deceased Rensselaer County veteran of the month of October, and that veteran is Robert E. Miller. We're honored to have with us this morning his family. I'm going to try to include everybody. Linda, his wife. Melissa and Glenn Saturday, Kelly Miller, Shelley and Josh Hanson, Lorraine Miller, and we have grandchildren, Emily, Andrew, Gabby, Regan, and Harper. Hopefully I've got everybody. Thank you all for being here. Also with us to honor our Honor a Deceased Veteran of the Month are the Rensselaer County Executive, Steve McLaughlin, filling in for him is Richard Christ, Congressman Paul Tonko, representing Congressman Pat Ryan is Max Prime, former Congressman Michael McNulty, New York State Assemblyman Jake Ashby, our Rensselaer County Legislative Chairman Kelly Hoffman, Legislative Vice Chairman Robert Loveridge, our Undersheriff Sheriff P.J. Higgett, the Rensselaer County Court Judge Deborah Young, from the Waterville Arsenal, Colonel Fisher, our legislators from Rensselaer County, Dan Casal, Mark Fleming, Tom Grant, Robert Loveridge. Naturally, Kelly Hoffman's here also. As we are all aware, Memorial Day and Veterans Day are special days to remember all our veterans. This program was created to help us honor our veterans all year round. To us here in Rensselaer County, every day is Veterans Day. The Rensselaer County Honor a Deceased Veteran Committee program represents veterans organizations throughout the entire county. This includes members of the American Legion, the Disabled American Veterans, the Veterans of Lansingburg, the Military Order of Purple Heart, the Marine Corps League, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Korean War Veterans, Tri-County Council Vietnam-era veterans, the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, the Vietnam Veterans of America, AMVETS, and our own Rensselaer County Veterans Service Agency. I will now ask Kelly Hoffman, the Rensselaer County Legislative Chairwoman, to come forward to tell us about our honored Veteran of the month of October, Robert E. Miller.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Hoffman, and as Tim said, I'm Chair of the Rensselaer County Legislature, and it's my honor to welcome all of you here this morning. Next month, we celebrate Veterans Day, but as Tim had mentioned, here in Rensselaer County, every day is Veterans Day, and we continue this tradition monthly by having this Honor of Veterans ceremony, which is so important to all of us. But today, we have a great turnout of family and friends to honor the life and service of Robert E. Miller. And I do want to acknowledge some of the other kids and folks that came in afterward. Thank you so much. Welcome, guys. Looks like you got out a little bit of school today to get here, right? So this is exciting. Bob Miller's service had an impact on so many who live in this area, and it's evidenced by, obviously, all that are here today. Bob was born near the Canadian border in Moores, New York on July 15, 1945. After finishing school, Bob enlisted in the U.S. Army in Troy on December 30th, 1963. His enlistment came at a time when American soldiers were at war in Vietnam, and many were second-guessing why we were over there. After completing basic training, Private Miller received airborne training and was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division as a paratrooper. Private Miller was assigned to the United States Army Europe for a little over 2.5 years, with his last duty assignment in Major Command with Company B, 1st Battalion, 509th Infantry Regiment Airborne. On April 12, 1968, Private Robert Miller was honorably discharged from the U.S. Army at Fort Dix, New Jersey, where he was awarded the National Defense Service Medal. After his discharge, Bob returned to London, England, with his wife Anna Elmore, whom he had married there in 1967. Together, they raised their daughter, Lucy. In 1971, Bob returned home to Troy and bought a house on First Street in South Troy. In 1977, he married Lorraine Grzybowski and started a family of 6 children, daughters Kimberly, Melissa, Kelly, and Shelley, and 2 sons, Shannon and Sean. Bob's training as a paratrooper must have played a role in the next stage of his life, when he and Lorraine jumped into the world of boxing. He was a great boxer while he was in the Army, but was forced to retire after 2 shoulder surgeries. After a local boxer asked Bob to train him, Uncle Sam's Boxing Club was born. Bob and Lorraine bought a building on River Street in Troy where Bob would train boxers and Lorraine would become a fight promoter. From humble beginnings, Bob and Lorraine's club would grow and touch the lives of thousands of young people and adults as they learned the sport of boxing. It is almost impossible to calculate how many lives took a change in the right direction because of their generosity and caring. They would often allow those who were facing hard times to live in rooms above the club for free while they got back on their feet. Sadly, after 25 years of serving the community, the building that housed Uncle Sam's Boxing Club was lost to a fire. Bob's career in boxing was not over, not by any stretch of the imagination. He worked with countless boxers, not only as a trainer, but as a cut man and a corner man. Many considered Bob the best cut man in the boxing business. He ran hundreds of amateur boxing shows locally, and his reputation in the sport continued to grow. One day, a trainer named Customato from Catskill reached out to Bob and asked if he would be interested in turning an up-and-coming amateur boxer into a pro. Bob and Lorraine would work with this fighter for most of his 25 fights, many which were held locally. That fighter, Mike Tyson, would go on to be called one of the greatest boxers of all time. In 2002, Bob retired from Shaker High School, where he also worked as a hall monitor for over 20 years. Bob moved back north to Altona and built a house and a new training camp with his new wife, Linda Hastings. Bob stayed involved in the boxing community and traveled the world, working as a cut man for professional fighters. A tragic automobile accident in October of 2016 left Bob paralyzed from the chest down. Bob was a fighter, and this injury would not stop him. He made it a point to stay involved in boxing and also do what was important to him, which was spending time with his family and his grandkids. And rightfully so, Bob was inducted into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. He was past president of the Adirondack Association of USA Boxing and was a member of the VFW. In his spare time, he enjoyed hunting, fishing, and watching his children and grandchildren play sports. I don't know how he had any time to do any of this. Bob made it a point to make every birthday party or family holiday party because his family were very important to him. Bob also loved teaching kids how to box and was a big New York Mets and Jets fan. Where's Tom Grant? You happy about that, right? Huge Mets fan. Sadly, on April 29th, 2022, Bob passed away, leaving behind his wife, Linda, his daughters, Lucy, Melissa, Kelly and Shelley, his sons, Shannon and Sean, his stepdaughter, Missy, his stepson, David, his 12 grandchildren, his 5 step-grandchildren, 6 of his siblings and previous wives, Anna and Lorraine, and his most loyal companion, his dog, Lily. Bob was predeceased by his parents, Robert and Claire, his infant daughter, Kimberly, and 8 siblings. FightNews.com once called Bob a boxing luminary. What an incredible life he had. His military service instilled in him a strong will, dedication, and passion for boxing that took him to the top of his sport. He set a great example for many by mentoring children, helping those less fortunate, and raising a loving family that cherished him. I know his sons followed in his footsteps as boxers, and his grandchildren are also quite talented also. He obviously instilled in them a fighting spirit to always strive to be the best, yet along the way, making sure you don't forget who you are or where you came from. I have fond memories of seeing Shannon and the entire Miller family showing up for Devon's basketball games when they played at St. Jude's with my son. And to Sean, who was always such a positive force for our children at Catholic Central High School. And now on a personal note, my daughter and my husband and our colleague, Shelby Fenton, who helps put our Honor of Vet ceremony together every month, are coaching Shelly's daughter, Gabby, who is also an incredible athlete, just like so many of you here, and more importantly, great people, great teammates, and a great family. With all those wonderful grandchildren who meant so much to him, I know they will all grow up knowing their grandfather's commitment to them. What an amazing legacy he created for all of you. On a personal note, I'd like to thank the Miller family and friends and family for allowing us to remember him today. We are grateful for Mr. Miller's love of community, of his family, of his service, and of our country. And before I invite Colonel Walsh up to say a few words, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Colonel Walsh.
Thank you, Kelly. It's always good to see a family here together to honor their service member. And I certainly know, I can see that looking at the faces here, that he was loved. And, excuse me. I have to hand it to him. He was a paratrooper. You know, when I was younger in high school, I was going to quit school and join the Army, and I was going to become a paratrooper. But my wife back there talked me out of it. I don't know if you noticed that when you come in, there was a wall out there with a lot of plaques on it. And that's honoring all our veterans that we have in the past 20 years here. And Bob will be on that plaque next year. So I want to thank you again for his service, and I want to thank the family for being here.
Thank you all. I will now ask Rich Chris to come forward.
Thank you, Tim. It's my honor to be here. We have a proclamation for you guys. I will admit I left it upstairs, so it's on its way down right now. But Steve is out of town at a previous scheduled trip, but wanted to extend his best wishes. And I had the opportunity to go back. I used to work for Neil Kelleher, and we used to help out. He would ask me to help out. I remember the boxing exhibitions Uncle Sam Boxing Club put on up at Knickerbocker Park, the great and positive impacts you guys made, the mentorship to great fighters locally like Kevin Pompey, and then changing the world by promoting the first fight literally for Mike Tyson as a professional, the defining heavyweight champ of my generation. And to have known Bob, he was a humble man. He was not a bragger. He was not somebody who carried himself with airs. He worked hard at the sport of boxing because he saw it as a sport he loved and as a way to transform the lives of young people in Troy. And he did. There's so many in Troy whose lives have been changed thanks to his mentorship and his generosity, the work with Lorraine as well, and the rest of the family. And I used to go see Shannon and, you know, see the lessons come to life. Sometimes it took a few rounds to get them to come to life, but Shannon usually won. And just, it's our honor to recognize somebody today who not only served his country with distinction and honor with an elite force like the 101st Airborne, but when he came out, he literally changed the world and made sports history and, you know, helped put a great fighter on the map, and also make a difference in Troy, that a legacy of service that continues today. So on behalf of Rensselaer County, County Executive Steve McLaughlin, and all the residents of Rensselaer County, I want to say thank you very much, and our best wishes to the Miller family and all. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. I will now ask Congressman Paul Tonko and Max Prime, representing Congressman Pat Ryan's office, to come forward.
Thank you, Tim. Well, good morning. An honor to speak in tribute to your late husband and father and grandfather, Linda, Shelley, and Melissa, and all of the family, Lorraine, all of the grandchildren and in-laws. Great collection of family here today. So we honor a person of greatness in Robert E. Miller. Bob has been recognized as one of those who provided great spirit to the U.S. Army, assuming a very difficult task as a paratrooper. But we are freedom-loving people, and we're free because of the actions of the brave in this country, an honor roll of citizens dubbed veterans. And to our active military, to Commander Fisher and our veterans assembled here, we say thank you to their service to this nation so that we can continue to be that beacon of hope to freedom-loving people around the world, and to thank our veterans for having not only protected but having promoted our freedoms and our opportunities in this nation. So this morning we recognize his selflessness, his tribute to this nation, his courage, his strength, and his undeniable patriotism. And to be able to have fought in that way to make certain that we remain free is what we pay tribute to this morning. So we say a humble thank you. His love for youth, training them, establishing a small business in the name of the Uncle Sam's Boxing Club, and being able to guide and perhaps challenge and direct young people into the sport of boxing. Interestingly, at my end of the congressional district in the Fulton-Montgomery area, where Mike Tyson was discovered, with a friend of mine, Bobby Stewart, who I'm certain came across Bob. And they saw something there in that young man. And so he brought out the best in individuals like Mike Tyson. And so we say thank you for his investment in youth. To also see that he worked with the young folks at Shaker High. So he definitely had a pattern there that became very apparent, his love for youth and directing them and being a strength for them. We also make note of his love of family, and it's obvious from the emotional impact here that you can witness by the naked eye. It's nice to know that he had impact on family. So this morning, in tribute, in honor, in recognition of his greatness, to the Robert E. Miller that we salute today, we ask that a flag be flown over this nation's capital on behalf of Congressman Pat Ryan and myself, who's represented by Max Prime here this morning. We ask that the flag be flown in tribute to his memory, his legacy, and to his honor. So we thank you for having shared him, not only for the nation's benefit, but for community's sake. And it is just a humbling spirit to be able to join with everyone this morning. May he rest in peace. Max.
Thank you for letting us all gather here today to honor Bob. There's not much that hasn't been said. From reading the biography, it seems that he was truly an incredible man, somebody who gave of himself not only in national service but in local service, making sure that those in our region and beyond kind of had an outlet in some ways, and showing especially youth the discipline and the determination that comes with sport, that comes with boxing, and that can help shape a life. And I've seen that in peers of mine who have entered the boxing world and who have kind of gone in maybe a little loose and wild, and kind of come out with a little bit more self-determination. But it seems from everything that I've read here that Bob was an incredible person. His home region is actually the home region of some family members of mine. A lot of familiar town names, and graduated from the school in the town that my fiance went to. So it was interesting to see that, because I had never heard of that town before I met my fiance. But thank you all for letting us be here and for letting us honor Bob and his immense impact in our region. And though Congressman Ryan could not be here, he did ask that I come here in his stead, and has a letter for you from him, so that you may take his words in the written form. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul and Max. I will now ask New York State Assemblyman Jake Ashby to come forward.
Good morning. Thanks, Tim, and thank you to Rensselaer County. Thank you to Congressman McNulty for starting this tradition, Colonel Walsh, Colonel Fisher for being here at the Arsenal, and thank you to the family for being here. It's evident that Robert had a pretty profound impact on a lot of people, especially his family. And when I was going through the bio, I couldn't help but notice a few things. They talk about the 101st, and everybody knows so many of their accolades, but the 509th, the G-men, Geronimo, I mean, they have a pretty storied history of their own. So he went from the 101st to the 509th, which wasn't exactly a lateral move. I mean, he went into even a more prestigious and severe fighting force over there, and their history precedes them in Afghanistan, even when I was there. And then, when he was coming back, I would imagine that Shaker High had very well-disciplined and well-behaved halls, having a hall monitor like him. I'm in awe of that. For 20 years, he did that, which is unbelievable. And then continuing to give back through the boxing community, and even when he was faced with a pretty severe accident that left him paralyzed, not giving up, in the example that sets for so many people. And I'm sure it had a very profound impact on your family, of all ages that are here today. The memories of that, the traditions, those are the things that are going to be carried on and kept close to people, and will continue to resonate with future generations. And on behalf of myself, John McDonald, and the New York State Assembly, have a proclamation for you, and I just want to say thank you for letting us honor him today.
Thank you, Jake. I will now ask Colonel Fisher, the commanding officer of the Waterville Arsenal, to come forward.
Good morning, everyone. Rensselaer County, thanks for hosting such an honorable event. No more important than honoring our veterans and their families. And so when I looked at Bob's profile and what I see, I think in the back row are some future paratroopers back there, right? Unlike Colonel Walsh, my wife couldn't convince me not to jump out of an airplane. And so I tell you, it's nothing like going out of a door, looking down, and just knowing that the rigors that pack your chute is going to open. They say, I'm sure always, and the rigors are. But when I look at Bob's story, his lifetime story, and I look at where the world is today on the cusp of fighting freedom in Europe, and where he started with the 101st Airborne, and then also serving with Geronimo. And they won't tell you, Geronimo is one of those units that, you know, if you're in the Army and you go to the Joint Readiness Training Center, they are the most fierce, advantageous, take advantage and exploit every opportunity, like you do in the four corners of a boxing, right? To make sure that you're trained, ready, and equipped to fight whatever task has been given. And so when you look at Bob's story, you know, I look at a hallmark of a person that's had a generational impact. And so for me personally, I can personally remember my bus driver, my hall monitors, my teachers, all those who used to, you know, walk by every day. So when we look at the legacy just sitting here, but look at the legacy he's touching every those, the lockers for the kids who couldn't open the lockers in the high school, for those kids that were having a bad day, for somebody just needed to hear a positive voice and instrument, you know, during their difficult times in life. And I reflect on what that means in the cusp of the Army values of just leadership, and I'm gonna just read them, and then for you just to take a moment of what you saw in Bob's life and legacy: loyalty to his fellow man, mission, and to others. And sometimes to others he just met for the first time, or those countless times of individuals. Duty to his country, duty to his loving family, and duty to others. Respect, treating everybody with dignity and respect that they deserve. Selfless service. I mean, you read the bio, everyone highlighted it, the family, right? Selfless service, all the way to the most end. Honor his country, his flag, his fellow fighters, and his family by living these values to the foremost. Integrity. I mean, being a hallway monitor, you have to be integrity because you have to be the person who's, you know, balancing the fights in the hallways, but also the integrity to show what's people what's right, what's doing all the time. And personal courage. There's nothing that says personal courage there's nothing my fellow Air Force veterans would tell me, hey, Fisher, why do you want to jump out of perfectly good airplane? And there's nothing like personal courage, right? Packing that parachute, knowing that your fellow service members rigged it, and jumping out of that perfectly good airplane. And so on behalf of the Waterville Elite Arsenal, of all its members, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing Bob with us. Thank you for the wonderful stories. And I can see right here the greatest generation that's coming next. And we do have an all-Army boxing team. And so not that I'm recruiting for the Army, we do have an all-Army boxing team in Colorado Springs, but thank you. And it's just a wonderful story.
Thank you, Colonel Fisher. I will now ask Jean Leparco from the Rensselaer County Honor Deceased Veteran Committee to present the plaque at this time. Will the committee members please rise? Thanks, Gene. Please stand for our closing prayer. Retire the colors. Two. This concludes our Honor of Vet ceremony for this month. Thank you for coming to honor our deceased veteran of the month of October, Robert E. Miller. Please join us for our next Honor of Veteran ceremony scheduled for November 14th. Before we go our separate ways, we'll take a few family photos, then we will reassemble shortly out by our county flagpole to raise the flag in Bob's memory. Thank you all again.